Oh, love is in the air. Every time I look around, love is in the air. Every sight and every sound. Oh, that scared you all off. Oh, here we are. So early too. There we go. I'll take Brian Eno's little grid pattern out. Ah! Oi! Now, my name is Quinlan, as I said, and this is Melbourne Musos, Facechook Live, recording for beloved Channel 31. There you go. What a week! I thought I would talk about this world rhythm. The beat of many colours is what I'm calling this show. And known by many, many names that I don't have a hope of saying every name, and maybe not correctly in the dialect. But it's this one. Oh, and many different ways to play it. And every time you change the tempo, you'll change the name. Every time you change the pattern, the hand pattern on a darbuka or a doumbek or any rik, any frame drum, you're going to change the name again. And a nuance is what it is. It's the nuance of moving just one little beat, changing the sound of the beat, and then it's something new. And what happens with that is that you can take that the world over and play with anybody, okay? That kind of thing with love and respect, because it's love is in the air. Habanero! Oh, JPY. There you go. So anyway, let me talk about it. The way that I generally teach it is calling it a calypso pattern. And what it is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And then what happens is that you nuance it. You do different things. So what happens is I've got my triggers on here. There's a darabuka. Oh. Trying to get different things out. There it is. Okay. Now what starts to happen is, depending on how you want to play it and in what country you're playing it in, it is known by many names, and it's the one constant throughout the world. There you go. So much so I call it the world rhythm first, but one of the more popular names is the calypso. And what happens is that it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. You can hear it being played on bongos, congas, anything in the world. That's a home loan ad I'm just saying. Can't get your home loan here. There was an ad on Melbourne television a few years ago, I think. Anyway, there you go. So what happens, let me talk about this. I'll do it on the hi-hat so you can hear me counting. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. That's what goes on. And there you have it, you see. Now, when you start doing different things, there's little adaptations depending on what name you're going to give it and what country you're playing it in. Don't get the names mixed up, okay? You could get yourself in trouble. It's a very sad situation when that happens. When I had it once at Troy Music. I was teaching a young fella. Saturday afternoon it was at Troy Music in Footscray back in the 80s. And I was teaching a young fella this beat, and I called it by the Greek name. And I get a knock on the door after the lesson's finished. Chris, you're a good teacher, but you'll not teach my son Greek beats. We're Macedonian. That's what it is. You work with the culture and all that. I learnt something that day. And what happens, with all respect to all parties, sort of thing. So what happens is that depending on what you're doing and what you're playing it in, adapting it to the drum kit, you can take on a couple of things. Now, this rhythm has historically been played on the particular country's drum, whether it's a hand drum, a frame drum, whatever it might be. Now, if I just use the humble snare drum, triggered up, the little snap. Now, when you're dealing with, say, a djembe or any one of these instruments, the hourglass drums, essentially, is that you have the dun, which is the middle, okay? You have the ka, which is the tap, and then the tek is the slap, you see? So you've got three taps there, okay, on any drum. Now, if we were to apply this to a snare drum with the snares off, or a tom-tom, if you like, you've got your normal ka, call an accent the dun, then the slap, the tek, could be a rim shot. And then, if you're going to do finger rolls, that could be double strokes. There you go. So that's some ways of adapting it, you see. Now, the foot pattern is, there's a couple, but the main one is getting that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. There you go. And you can have the hi-hat on 2 and 4 is the one that I use probably a lot. 1. So it's 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. In other words, in the most layman of terms, right, left, both. Right, left, both. Put it with a single stroke roll. Then, with the hi-hat, you can splash. You've got the same kind of levels as what I just demonstrated on the snare drum. If I tap, I'm going down to odd sock cam down there. So what happens if I just play it like that, there's the hi-hat sound. If I splash, I can get a splash hats. If I put a bit more force, the Johnny Bonham jingles, a jingle, jingle, jangle, starts to happen. So you can start getting this kind of... Now, the names change depending on what speed, how you play it, what you do. There you go. So I'm talking about the calypso. The calypso is from Trinidad and Tobago, known as a Latin rhythm, and there you have that. If I was to go across to the hi-hat and do what I was doing with "Love is in the air," that kind of thing, in the key of T flat or Q flat, C Q flat, what you've got. Not worthy. That was a bit of a dumb one. Anyway, so what happens if you've got a thing called a soukous, S-O-U-K-O-U-S, you have a soukous rhythm. And every time I see, when I was out and about filming for Channel 31, wasn't always my show. I was filming for lots of different people, you know, any cameramen around, you want to do this, you want to do that, you know, sort of thing. And I always remember one band called Soukous Lokole, back in the mid-90s that I filmed at the Apollo Bay Music Festival. And the whole rhythm, the whole gig was there's that kind of thing there. Now, what happens is I have a little thing with hi-hats called a naturally opening hi-hat. And what I mean by that is that if you've got it, say, on, if you're playing all four, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, if you play a single stroke roll, this is a bit of a Neil Peart thing. I explained this the other week, but you get a naturally occurring. It happens. You get one for free. So, what happens is if you put your hi-hat on 2 and 4, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You get some naturally opening hi-hats there. So. You can fiddle about with it. Bell. There it is there. Oh. Now I get to wriggle on with the names. That's a sukos from Africa. Okay, sukos rhythm. You do it in many different ways. And then what happens then is that you can, I'm going down the track of John Paul Young, and that's a form of a habanera beat, which is over in Cuba, you see. And, you know, that kind of ba, 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 da, ba, ba. And there's little nuances. You might add an extra tap or whatever it might be. Now, when you're dealing with these kinds of rhythms, speed is, these rhythms are locked in with the dance that goes with them in many ways. So therefore, if I'm going to play it fairly quick, like, and if I go boom, okay, that kind of, that's known as a malfouf beat, okay, a Middle Eastern rhythm from that region. And if I went and, say, put some snares on and sort of did a very kind of similar kind of thing. That is now Freeluk, which is a Jewish rhythm, you see. And the word Freeluk means happy, cheerful. And what happens, it's a klezmer, wonderful, vibrant music. And the Middle Eastern kind of Arabic rhythms, I mean, they've been so influential towards bands like Led Zeppelin, you know, that kind of thing. Tea Party, things like that. When I saw the Tea Party back in the 1999 at the Palais, they pulled the doumbeks and the djembes out and did a little solo, the three of them, you know. It was fantastic, unbelievable music. And it was just so wonderful to listen to. And that's what goes on. Now, when you take that, the malfouf has, it's like dun, tek, tek, dun, tek, tek. So you've got that kind of, I'll do it as a drum kit variation, right? So I go, so bum. Now, if I'm doing it as a single stroke roll, then you build it up. I've got the pattern with the feet. That's a bit of a variation from what I'm trying to explain, you know, adapting these wonderful rhythms to the drum set, you see. Now, if I slowed that down and I sort of went... even slower. That's now a dun, dun, tek. And that, with the slower tempo, is known as a kaliji rhythm. Okay, kaliji rhythm. And that's what happens there. Now, I'm essentially playing the same thing, but I'm giving it a nuance. Okay, now this is very similar to things that we sort of know a lot more about, as far as if you're in a jazz band and you're playing some Latin rhythms. There's a 3-2 clave, but you syncopate the very last beat by one quaver, next thing you know, you've got a bossa nova. And bossa nova by Antonio Carlos Jobim means bossa nova, rhythm new, a new rhythm. You see, just by moving one. Because when you're playing a 3/2 clave, which is the backbone of so much music, it sounds a bit closed. Ba 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 ba. But if you syncopate that last beat, ba 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 ba, you know, that kind of thing. There, you get that. That kind of thing there. There you are. Now, if we move around the Mediterranean Sea, what starts to happen, if I go back to that little thing that I learnt from in the 80s, you're not touch my son, you know, that kind of thing. I got the name wrong, okay? And what it is if I played it fairly quickly, it's a sirtos rhythm, which is Greek. And all those little doubles are finger rolls on whatever drum it's getting played on, whatever hand drum, you see. I'll do it again if you like. That kind of thing there. Put it here. Now that one is the even quavers. Hey, and then you could splash it. You could something like that anyway. But if I slowed it down and I did the same thing, around about the 100 to 120 beat per minute mark, it's a kukla. Kukla, mate, kukla. Even slower. Boom. And what starts to happen now is that there's different styles, different dances, and they're essentially, technically, it's the same thing, but it ain't really. It's a nuance, and I'm treating these with so much love and respect as far as a teacher, being a little bit of a student myself of it, because the thing about it is, if you play something too quick or too slow, the dancers who are dancing won't be able to, you know, get their steps in or whatever it is, that kind of thing. And there's specific requirements of it. But when we're adapting it for the drum set, you start to take in all these ideas and adapt them. I mean, after all, the Latin, you know, if you're doing a bossa nova or a samba and all that sort of stuff, they were around long before a drum kit was invented or anything like that, the trap set and all that sort of stuff. You had different drummers doing different things. I've often talked about the surrador rhythm, which is one mallet, one hand on a tom-tom shoulder strap. I've done that plenty of times. And what that is translates to but that's another time. That's what old H used to say, that's the Latin bass drum. Some people know it as a samba bass drum, but that's not the subject of tonight. It's the rhythm of the world. if I get a wriggle on and go down that, I did mention Macedonian rhythms, or Macedonia and Bulgarian rhythms, and that whole area, the Balkan states, Albania and everywhere around that area, Croatia, all the countries there, they not only have this rhythm, but they also have odd times. You've got 5s and 7s, 9s. I've talked about the Zebekiko as far as a Greek rhythm. I'm not mixing them up. What happens is when you go across and you go into the Balkan areas there, they have different names and they would be played with a different kind of nuance and with a different kind of dance, with a different kind of national dress and all that. So I'm taking a lot of time to tread carefully on a rhythm and music from the rhythm that is known around the world and everyone can just link in, that kind of thing. And there's a bit of an allegorical thing with that. Now, if I get a wriggle on, because I'm going to try and put all of this on Channel 31 without me rabbiting on for ages, what happens is that if I turn the snares on and do the same kind of thing, that's getting close to New Orleans, second line rhythms and stuff. One of the big things about second line rhythms though is the 3-2 clave. But a lot of the songs have that in it as well. And you're starting to talk about New Orleans. And if I'm going to go down that track, you're starting to get into Cajun and Zydeco, that kind of thing, where you got that, you know, if I'm talking country, it's Johnny Cash. But with the rhythm. If I put the accent on... I'm back to it. Love is in the air. Every time I look around. Habanero. Across the water to Cuba and all that. And then, you know, we're talking about the southern states of USA, New Orleans, all that business. You're talking about Cuba. They had their troubles as well. Missile crisis and all that. There you go. Oh, I'm going to wrap the show up now. So I hope you enjoyed what I'm on about here. I don't want to conflate all these wonderful rhythms. I'm talking about the basis, the bedrock of it, and the wonderful rich history that this rhythm gives the world. And there you go. So my name is Chris Quinlan. This is Melbourne Musos Facechook Live. I'll get it ready for you tomorrow. And it'll be up on Channel 31 in a couple of weeks. I'm a little bit ahead. And there's a reason for it. Of course there's a reason. You can see it. Blind Freddy can see it with what's going on around. I've mentioned just about every continent here. We're all playing the same stuff. We're not that different. And there it is, you see. So anyway, I'll love and leave you with an emphasis on the love bit. And what it is let me go through these. I'll just name the names. Calypso, Sukkos, Freelak, Malfuf, Kaliji, Sirtos, Kukla, Macedonian rhythms, Balkan rhythms, Bulgarian rhythms, New Orleans second line rhythms, habanera. And don't forget that you could go into a pub in Moscow and hear the rhythm, catch the plane, and I think you know where I'm going, and have the same rhythm played back to you, only with a different dialect in the Ukraine. Come on! The world of music is wonderful. It's a wonderful place. I'll have this up for you tomorrow. Hey, thank you for watching. Mwah! Love yous all.